Thank you for tuning in to Deer and Deer Hunting TV. On this episode, we'll explore why some yearling bucks fail to fit the antler mold of what many feel they should be. In the next half hour, we'll take a look at why some yearlings sport spike antlers while others grow basket-racked 8-point antlers. It's a fascinating topic you won't want to miss, so stay tuned. There are basically 7 reasons why yearling white-tailed bucks don't match up. In other words, they don't have as good of antlers as maybe some of the other yearlings. And those 7 reasons would be late births. They could have been born late. It could have been that they were going through a very hard winter when they were a button buck. Genetics is one that a lot of folks get energized by. Well, genetics is only part of the puzzle. So it could have been poor genetics that would cause them to have small antlers. Could be that their mothers were poor. What I mean by that, they just didn't know how to raise their young. I find that having raised deer, you often see this with yearling does. They're not quite as good of mothers as the older does are. And then it could have been the fact that that fawn was sick during the first year of its life. And if it's sick, those antlers are not going to be near as good. Then of course, poor food is a big indicator of what's going to happen with their antlers. Could have been on marginal range. It could have been where you didn't have good agriculture. It could have been where there was drought. It could have been that fawn could have been born where there was very poor soils. And all these things work in concert. But one thing that a lot of folks fail to understand is if you've got too many deer on the range, those yearling bucks are not going to have as large antlers as they possibly could. To illustrate why some yearling white-tailed bucks would not be as good as others, let me talk about 12 photos that I'm providing for this program. The very first one is a spike buck. And this spike buck is kind of typical of what happens when you've got a mother that's not as good, or maybe severe winters, or perhaps you've got a late birth, or maybe the soils and the food are not quite as good. The second image that I've got here is pretty much it won't be a mirror image of the first one, but it's again to give you an idea of when you've got all of these things lining up, the 7 kind of ingredients for poor antlers. Spike buck, not near as good as some other yearlings that have great habitat, great mothers, and great genetics. A white-tailed buck that's pretty much indicative of a good situation. Probably born on time. He's a crotch buck. It's a 4-pointer. Probably had good food. Certainly the soils were there, and it's the kind of animal that you find in a good whitetail herd. And of course, you always find some great yearling bucks. And this 4th image is one that pretty much shows what can happen when you've got a good mother, you've got good food, you've got a lot of things going for it. So this is a great example of a yearling white-tailed buck. Basket rack, 8 points, tremendous potential from an antler growth standpoint. Thank you for tuning in to Deer and Deer Hunting TV. On this episode, we'll explore why some yearling bucks fail to fit the antler mold of what many feel they should be. In the next half hour, we'll take a look at why some yearlings sport spike antlers while others grow basket-racked 8-point antlers. It's a fascinating topic you won't want to miss, so stay tuned. There are basically 7 reasons why yearling white-tailed bucks don't match up. In other words, they don't have as good of antlers as maybe some of the other yearlings. And those 7 reasons would be late births. They could have been born late.